Hello everyone, and welcome back to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. Tonight's story didn't unfold on a red carpet or at a glossy premiere. It began with a free afternoon, a small corner cafe, and an aunt who promised her nephew hot chocolate with extra foam. Demet Özdemir had planned a quiet hour off the grid, no glam team, no interviews, just a table by the window and a little boy working his way through a plate of warm cookies while she quizzed him about school and swapped silly riddles between sips. It was ordinary in the way famous lives almost never get to be. And then the door opened, the bell chimed, and the ordinary shifted, because the next person to step inside was Yaman. If you followed these two over the years, you already understand why the mood in the room changed even before a single word was exchanged. They carry a shared history that belongs to them first and to the audience second. A history full of hours on set, tight schedules, and the kind of teamwork that makes on-screen stories feel inevitable. Still, what happened in that cafe wasn't scripted. It was a coincidence handled with grace. A staffer recognized Can almost immediately. A couple at the far table pretended not to stare and failed. Demet, looking up from a drawing her nephew had just finished, met Can's eyes with an expression that combined surprise and ease. There was a beat, a breath, and then they both smiled. Here's what witnesses noticed and what matters about it. No one rushed. No phones were thrust into anyone's face. Can didn't stride over in a way that would have turned the room into an audience. He approached like a friend who knew there was a child at the table and that the pace of the moment belonged to the child. Demet stood, introduced her nephew by first name only, and set a tone that was warm and sensible at the same time. This wasn't a reunion staged for clicks. It was a hello, grounded and careful. The conversation that followed was quiet and practical. They asked each other the kind of questions people who have worked together ask when the spotlight isn't involved. Are you sleeping enough? Are you eating at decent hours? How's the shoulder after that stunt? Did that script you liked finally lock? Demet mentioned an upcoming commitment that would take her out of the city for a few days. Ken nodded and countered with a story about a late-night call that turned into an early call time. If you were listening for gossip, there was none. If you were listening for respect, it was all over the table. Then came the request that turned a private minute into a public moment, a selfie. It didn't come from Demet or Can. It came from a young barista whose hands shook as he tried to decide whether to ask. Demet caught the hesitation and made it easy. One photo, she said, outside, by the sign, and please, no child in the frame. Can echoed the boundary with a grin and a quick thank you. They stepped onto the sidewalk, stood under the cafe's hanging plant, and obliged, one simple photo, cleanly framed, no filters, no theatrics. The barista's relief was contagious. Even the couple inside, still pretending not to stare, exhaled. What happened next is the part the internet knows. The image traveled. It moved from the barista's private message to a friend, to a fan page, to a river of reposts that crossed languages and time zones in less than an hour. Captions scrambled to keep up. Some were pure joy, look who we spotted. Others were bolder, already drafting a narrative about reunions and second chances. But the most telling reaction said something gentler, that it felt good, after years of speculation and projection, to watch two people navigate a coincidence with kindness and restraint. Let's pause there, because this restraint is the real story. Demet did not post the photo herself. She did what she always does when a public moment intersects with a private responsibility, she curated. Her nephew remained a detail, not a prop. When a well-meaning bystander tried to angle a camera toward the table inside, she raised a hand, polite, firm, and the phone lowered. Ken matched the energy. He avoided the familiar trap of turning a small, human interaction into a content opportunity. He greeted a couple of fans on the sidewalk, signed a napkin with a quick flourish, and kept the conversation away from sensitive ground. Of course, any image that combines their names is going to be read as a message, and a portion of the internet immediately tried to decode it. Are they back? Are they talking again? Was the cafe chosen, the timing planned? The simplest answer is also the truest. Sometimes a city puts two people in the same place at the same time, and the story is how they behave, not what they declare. Today's story is courtesy at scale: how to say yes to a picture and no to intrusion, how to greet an old colleague when family is at the table, how to refuse the urge to perform when performing would be easy. There's more. Both Demet and Can have been involved, separately and sometimes overlapping, in work that does not need cameras to exist: literacy initiatives, animal welfare, health campaigns, resource drives in the wake of emergencies. In their brief café conversation, the subject surfaced naturally. Demet mentioned a local reading event she has supported for years. Can asked whether volunteers were still needed next month. This wasn't virtue signaling. It was logistics: who to contact, where to send a small donation, how to keep momentum between projects. If you're looking for proof that their friendship is made of more than nostalgia, it's in the way they problem solve when no one is watching. Another detail worth noting: boundaries framed as care, not secrecy. Demet's nephew, the catalyst for the café hour, remained happily oblivious to the weight the grown-ups' names carry online. When he asked whether Ken was the guy from the poster, everyone laughed, and Demet gently steered him back to his drawing. After the photo, she offered a quick wave to the staff, gathered the crayon pieces that had migrated across the table, and paid without fanfare. Ken stayed a few more minutes to place an order and tip generously. No elaborate exit. No manufactured cliffhanger. The dignity of small routines held. As the image traveled, commentary polarized the way commentary always does. There were outpourings of love from fans who have been rooting for any sign of warmth between them. There were editorials urging the public to let private lives remain private. And there was a rare consensus among people who are normally at odds. The snapshot looked like what it was: a courteous pause in a busy day, a shared past acknowledged without being relitigated, a reminder that grown-ups can be gracious even when the room is watching. It's easy in moments like these to forget the price of being constantly observed. If every unplanned encounter becomes a referendum on the past, no one can breathe. Demet and Can gave themselves breathing room by choosing simplicity. They didn't invite rumors, and they didn't run from them. They didn't supply a narrative, and they didn't scold one into silence. They modeled something better than a definitive statement: they modeled steadiness. If the friendship is active, it will appear in little ways: coordinating schedules for a charity event, recommending a cinematographer, sending congratulations that never reach the press. If it isn't, the respect will remain. Either way, the café moment has already done its work. It reminded a noisy ecosystem that kindness can be news. What does this mean for fans who love both names and the idea of them together? It means you can celebrate without invading. Share the image if it came from the original source and the child is not visible. Keep captions generous and grounded. When someone tries to bait you into declaring an ending, resist and point to what actually happened: two professionals met by chance, handled it beautifully, and left the space the way they found it: quiet, intact, better than before because everyone felt seen. From a media perspective, this is the kind of encounter that tempts shows like ours to make more of it than it can hold. But our promise at Turkish Spotlight Secrets is to honor the scale of the truth. We can talk about how a single photo can trigger 1,000 interpretations. We can talk about the algorithms that move images faster than facts. We can talk about the nostalgia that makes people want to read every smile as a message and every message as a map. What we won't do is pretend that a café hello is a contract. Stories deserve room to breathe. People deserve it more. Before we wrap, a note for those who always ask what they can do that actually helps. Follow the work, not just the names. If Demet posts about a reading program, amplify it. If Can shares an animal shelter drive, donate a little if you can or volunteer an hour. The most meaningful way to take part in the lives of public people is to strengthen the causes they care about. It turns admiration into something that outlasts a trend. So here is your clean, responsible summary. Demet Özdemir took her nephew to a café for a quiet treat. Yaman walked in, and the two greeted each other with warmth and care. They stepped outside for a quick photo at a fan's request, with a clear boundary that kept a child out of the frame. The image spread, the internet did what the internet does. Through it all, the principals remained exactly who they have shown themselves to be when they are at their best: focused, respectful, and mindful of the difference between being seen and being centered. If you value that kind of storytelling, stay with us. Subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, turn on notifications, and consider joining to support deeper reporting that takes time, context, and restraint. In the comments, tell us how you read the cafe moment. Did it feel like closure, a new chapter, or simply a well-handled coincidence? We read everything, and we moderate for kindness, because that's the only trend worth protecting. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.